Right, so why your pen test didn't matter? You're obviously here because you like the idea of the talk, so I will crack on. I found out I was doing this yesterday, so I put a few slides together rather hastily with the help of a well-known AI solution. Anyway, about me. Who do I know here? A few of you. I've been doing cyber for quite some time, from before when it was called cyber. I think that was coined about 20 years ago. I predate that. Set 2sec up 2011 because I was a bit pissed off with the way everyone else was doing security. Wanted to do it myself, do it my own way. But in the end, I just ended up doing it the same as everyone else anyway. I've been doing all sorts. I'm a little bit more on, I guess, the GRC side, so consulting side. I do a lot around PCI DSS, ISO, Cyber Essentials, all that fun stuff. But obviously, we do pen testing. We do that quite a lot, and I do dabble my hand in it once in a while. But we do have a clever team around us that helps with all the important bits. And yeah, we've been sponsoring badges at SteelCon for 10 years. Right, fun fact. And I can't read my own screen. Great. So this is obviously a talk about pen tests, but I guess a quick, I was going to do a quick show of hands really, but I think we're sort of in a stage where if you're doing pen test, a quick show of hands, who's a pen tester here? Let's start there. Got 1, 2, 3. Right, Mum at the back. Yeah, right, okay. So we're sort of mixed, sort of a few pen testers, we've got a few engineers, consultants, that sort of thing, or? I guess, there you go. But I think what we're seeing, reality-wise, I guess why I wrote this talk, we tend to see, as pen testers, we tend to see the same finding, the same client, sort of year after year. It just keeps coming back. And I say, I've been doing testing, consulting for bloody ages now, and I see the same thing repeat again and again. So I don't know if you feel that as SteelCon or the audience in front, if you agree with that. Then we also find, if you've got any testers here that have found something critical and found that hasn't really been acted upon, a quick show of hands. Okay, that's interesting. As more people put their hand up, they're actually pen testers. I guess you're not ethical tech, you must be hackers or something like that. And again, we all see findings that get fixed, but then they somehow come back later. Do you see it as well? Preaching converted here. and the old classic bit is, have we ever been in a situation where we found something which we think is quite critical, but then the customer tends to devalue that finding and lower the risk and say, that's not really important. We all get that, don't we? And if you're not a pen tester yet and you want to be a pen tester, you will see this. So it's my future prediction for anyone looking to start out a career in pen testing. And then, of course, the classic one at the end is, well, we passed the audit now, so don't really matter until you come back next year anyway. See a bit of that too. So I guess, what was the myth of pen testing? So when I say organisation, what customers think happen? Okay, we find something, they fix it, and okay, yeah, that is security. But the reality is something a bit more convoluted. So we find something, and then there's all of a sudden there's a discussion. They start arguing about it, and they'll try and reclassify it. So that's not a medium, that's a low. Oh, that's not a low, that's an info. Well, that's not an info. That shouldn't be an info. Shouldn't be in the report. Blah blah blah. But ultimately, the risk gets accepted. The audit passes. But at the end of the day, that vulnerability still remains. But we've done our work, done a good job, and told customers that they've got issues. They sort of fix. They do something with them. They talk about it. They reclassify, but they don't actually fix. They don't actually fix the vulnerability. Which is interesting, because that's sort of kind of what they pay us to do, to find stuff and help them fix stuff, but it just gets buried. And we find clients are bound by sort of common KPIs. So in security teams, their KPIs are sometimes the number of findings they close. that's a KPI. They get paid bonuses on closing a number of findings. Of course, the management scenario is how bad does a risk register look? The company will have their risk register, and as long as there's not too much on it, they all get to keep their jobs. Great. The compliance teams, do they pass the audit? Yes or no? If they pass the audit, great. They're going to look good. They've got jobs. But from an attacker perspective, it's still got remaining attack pass. There we go. But only one of those really matters. Can you tell her which one it is? And what else we see on? I guess this is what as testers we see reports. So often write reports. Where's that one? This really echoes where we are in as a industry when we do write reports. I mean, it just reiterates what I've said before. We write reports, but the original context of the report, why we did the engagement, which is used to see if we can get in, it just quickly gets forgotten. And who reads the report? Well, as the testers, we read our reports. We read every page. We've got to QA them, fix all the typos, spelling mistakes, formatting, and all that. The security team at the customer end, they might read the actual findings, the exact summary perhaps, if you're lucky. The engineering teams will read each individual remediation point and create a case, create a change control to get stuff changed. Management will barely go past the first few paragraphs, but nobody really sees the whole picture apart from the tester that does it. And it's kind of always been like this, for the last 20, 30 years I've been in industry. It's not really changed. It's something endemic, something wrong with the way we're doing stuff. And I guess there's a few phrases we coined. There's security through attachment is a good one. A report exists, a PDF created, ticket based, but nothing actually changed. Findings don't get seen as risks. I think some findings are maybe they're too technical for the audience that's reading these reports and trying to fix things. For example, if LDAP signing isn't enforced, then the risk is obviously someone can get domain admin, but they're not really the same thing. But the way the reports are written, the finding is LDAP's signing is not enforced. That doesn't always jump out at the report reader to say, okay, someone can actually get domain admin from that. There's a disconnect between findings and actual risks. And we're finding organisations are focused on, I guess they fix the findings, but they don't really fix the risk. Not that you can, but and you see that an awful lot. So entities are almost findings focused. They fix all the findings, but they don't really look at the root cause. They don't think, why is that finding happen? Why is it like that? What if those findings chain together with other stuff? You just don't see those questions being asked. And I guess we all know what CVSS is. It's great, isn't it? You find companies are taking CVSS as a business risk, but they're not really applying all these lovely things in CVSS, but environment likelihood, exposure, previous past. And some examples there. So, something CVSS score of 9.8, it can be completely irrelevant. No one could probably ever exploit it. But CVS score 5 can be catastrophic, and even informational issues can be catastrophic. I'll put a reference to subversion there. I remember, 10, 12 years ago or something, you'd run a Nessa scan on a subversion server, great, it detects you running subversion, great, and it puts this information finding. But I guess most testers would probably just look past that. Most companies say it's disinformation, won't bother that. But if you query that, and this is probably a good example where we did a test, and okay, there's a running subversion service publicly accessible, oops. But you pull out the subversion files and you find the PHP MyAdmin and database credentials in the file. And to me that's a critical, isn't it? But then your Nessa scanner has flagged it as info and buried it right down the bottom. And I think in that case was That was a supplier to local councils. So we got to see everybody's parking ticket that's been issued in the past 15 years across 15 major councils in the UK, because they're all using the same software. Yet you ran an ESSA scan on that system, and okay, if you read it and looked in the info, and out of info scans you do on ESSAs, you do an ESSA scan, you might, I don't know, get 5 criticals, like 10 highs, 20 mediums, 50 lows, and then probably, I don't know, 400 or 500 informational things about things it found that it doesn't really realise what the severity is, but I don't think it would. But since then, we spoke to Tenable, and I think they've got a whole new range of subversion findings for you now. So when you do run a scan, they rank them a little bit higher. I hope that makes sense. And again, if you are doing a test, I mean, from an attacker's perspective, that they're not attacking you CVE by CVE. The attacker's always going to be chaining things together, doing one thing to let them do something else that then lets them do something else. It's an important attacker mindset. And that is we get that a lot. And I think if you're doing an audit for PCI, for NCSC, for ISO, for whatever standard, the remit is to make sure you haven't got any criticals. So an organisation will take a report, look for the criticals, just fix those, and ignore those. Ignore the rest of the findings, but more importantly, they ignore the symptoms. So why have they got these criticals in the first place? We just find that overlooked. It's dangerous stuff, really. I did put some case studies together, so again, hammering home. I mean, a pen test is often a bit too narrow. So we get asked to test a web app, or test a new service, or test a specific part of an organisation. But in the meantime, the organisation doesn't bother using MFA. They've got shared admin accounts, got a flat network, but you don't really find that in a focused pen test. It's almost as if it's a pen test. You're being channeled in a direction that they want you to head, because they know, okay, well, we're probably not going to find the issues, and we can all keep our jobs, and we can all not bother enabling MFA because it's a ball ache. And I guess, question back to you. Has anyone seen a critical CVS, critical finding with a critical CVS score? Has anyone actually seen someone use that sole issue to compromise an organisation? That could be a rhetorical question, really. Oh, one. There we go. That means everyone else hasn't seen it, or they've ignored it. But I guess the point is, a finding on its own, okay, even if it is critical, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Some are pretty deadly, but usually they need to be chained together with other things to get anywhere. So you might chain a critical CVSS with some lower priority CVSS findings to actually gain a foothold in an organisation. We see mediums that can own estates as well. I've got to be careful what they're saying, can't really give names on this. But sometimes things like excessive AD delegations, forgotten service accounts, groups with too much privilege, they might come up as a low to medium finding if you apply a CVSS score, but then the actual impact of that is pretty critical. So if you are testing, don't just look at the highs and criticals. Look at ways to chain all this stuff together. Look at everything you're seeing, and I think through experience and years of doing the stuff, you'll work out how to glue it all together. I've got to look at the latest hack in the news. I'm not going to name any names, but can I name some names? TCS had a hack a few weeks ago, didn't they? I'm pretty sure within that organisation there would have been a pen test report that's been quite recent that didn't show any criticals, yet they got done over the ransomware a few weeks later. So something there isn't quite adding up. That's another one. We love this one as a pen testing firm. I think we forget this a little bit. Organisations try and take things into their own hands. Think, okay, we're going to buy a copy of Nessus. Pen test really more. We're going to save money. Great. You all know what Nessus is. That's very, very worrying. I've got 10 nods. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you don't want it, there's Google for things like that. But this is a vulnerability scanner, and it's heavily relied upon we use it. We use it to go for the big overall picture of what we need to pen test. It's good for finding any open ports, missing patches, stuff like that. But then it will never tell you which of those can be chained together, which is where the true value of a pen tester is. So when I say you can spend 4K on a Nessus license, but why spend another 15K on a pen test? That's not our cost. It's probably that extra value is getting you a tester that can chain together these issues, and it kind of has to sense to things like payroll or HR and pivot around, get to more organisations that way. And there's a lot of theatre we see. Where theatre, a lot of theatre is, you're in one. Actually, theatre, great. But so we do a pen test, and we say it's risk acceptance type theatre. So you get all this politics going on in an organisation. If you're ever part of those conversations, you hear the regular complaints: it's too expensive to fix, it's too difficult to fix, or it's too political. If we do this, then someone else might better do their job. No one seems to own the risk, and that is what we call risk acceptance theatre, because it's all, in Andy's word, it's all bollocks, and his words are a bit stronger than that. But we call it a risk acceptance theatre because the risk is still there. It's sort of been dealt with, but it hasn't actually disappeared. And again, you get the compliance theatre, security theatre. I love security theatre. Recent PCI audit, I think we do it quite regularly. You end up collecting about 10,000 screenshots. PCI is a payment card industry security standard, supposedly to help organisations not use credit card data, but it's got so paper heavy. The standard's almost 400 pages long. Last one we did, we had to collect 10,000 screenshots, and that is what let us give them a pass. But something's put a bit wrong there. If you get security through screenshots, I don't buy into it, but we're kind of told that's the way we have to do it. So if anything does go wrong, then Visa or MasterCard or the Feds or whatever, they can look back at your compliance report, find the screenshot that they should have known was there, shouldn't have missed, and then they sort of dish out fines thereafter. But the good job is that attackers don't give a toss about any of that anyway. They don't care about your screenshots. And I guess that is security stroke compliance theatre. What else? Nobody seems to own issues. Issues that we see as testers, we find them, and I just get the impression nobody at the client end really seems to own these things. Slippery shoulders, it's engineering will fix that, or AppSec, or the developers will code around that, or we'll patch it or whatever. But despite management funding the whole thing and it's all being tracked, I don't ever feel things are being fixed. And I say that with a lot of experience. I've got grey hair, but that's recurring year on year. We see that all the time. Nobody wants to own the problem. Difficult, too expensive. I bet us as a pen test team, we're just a pain in the arse. We just cause them trouble. We get asked to de-scope findings. So take that out of scope. Don't want to test it. Don't put it in the report. Or that's not critical. Make it a medium. None of which we do. We just stick to our guns. It's important as testers to stick to your guns on this. If you find it critical, then it stays critical. You don't change it because the client has little wins, and they do wins quite a lot. I think we found that, but but you've got to stick where you are, because as soon as you change your findings, you've lost your integrity as a tester. I can't remember. I've got these slides back to front. I don't. Yeah, there we go. That's a good parallel. I mean, and there's also the trade-off between security engineering. The security says, yeah, fix this, but your engineering team doesn't really understand why, and they get told to spend time fixing something they don't understand, which invariably means they might not fix it properly. Well, on the flip side, the engineers say, well, it's not important, we can't do it right now. But the security says, well, we don't care, you've got to do it anyway. But both sides are typically right. I mean, security's there to measure risk. Engineering's there to measure delivery, and they're both really pressurized. They're not really lying, and I guess it's about understanding if you are dealing with engineers or DevOps or developers, whatever, then they're a completely different mindset, and they've got bigger projects going on in their heads. And, they don't always see security eye to eye with security teams. But again, stick to your guns on that. And we see a lot of finding dilution. Right, okay, we find stuff. These are made up months, but this is about right. So 1 month, domain compromise is possible. Okay, so by the time they get around to looking at it, February or March time, okay, well, yeah, it's still there. You've got a privileged escalation scenario. Come June, they've managed to make it a medium risk, and September they've accepted the risk. So within 9 months of finding something pretty significant, like, we can overtake the domain, it just, over time it gets diluted. And I don't know, maybe that's the psychology. I don't know, but what do you do? We do see this alarmingly quite a lot. And I don't think there's an answer for it, really. It's something just to bear in mind. Maybe when we do find something critical, you just got to kick off and don't sit back down until someone's accepted it and fixed it. But again, these are all reasons why we've seen big names, big brands in the news that they're being compromised. Probably because they've had pen tests, great, but they've probably not really done anything about them. They've diluted risks, they've reclassified, they've touched stuff out of scope, they've been awkward. But I hope that helps. So again, annual pen tests, compliance regimes, the ones I mentioned before, they all say, you've got to have a pen test once a year. Great. Okay. But the point there is that a lot can happen in a year. And because the standards like PCI, ISO 27000, or whatever, NIS2, anything out there, even the banking ones like the FCA, PRA will kind of mandate or semi-mandate you have to use ISO 27000, and that in turn mandates you should have a pen test at least once a year. It's just, in this day and age, annual pen tests just don't, they work, they're fine, but they're only valid on the day you do them. So again, the firewall stuff, we see that, we do firewall reviews, it's preaching to the converted a little bit. But really these are just really examples of where the annual pen testing regime don't work, because so much changes in a year. You can test an application in 1 month, a year, a few months later they change it, put new authentication flows in it, but then they still rely on the last pen test that was done a few months ago, which is just not right. And that's more alarming because they don't actually do anything else for security. They just kind of rely on your annual external assurance. Organisations, especially bigger ones, that keep buying other organisations. Great. If someone would buy 2 set one day, quite nice. But again, we've seen a company has a pen test in January. They acquire an organisation in March, and they don't have their next pen test until the January, despite carrying all the risk of an acquisition. And in an acquisition, someone trying to get rid of their company and sell it for as much money as possible. They don't care. They've cut their costs to make themselves look lean and mean, and of course their security is going to be rubbish. But case studies where. And milk expires apparently. Pen tests expire, but how long are they valid for? But I'd say about a day at best. Pen test report's good, isn't it? Especially our ones. But organisations think they treat them like gold. Yes, valid forever. This covers security for a whole year ahead. If we had a pen test, right. Anyway, sure Andy would have been swearing by now for this. So enter continuous pen testing. That sounds great, doesn't it? So if annual pen testing is the limit, it has to do it continuously. What does that mean? There's a lot of people doing it. So, but what is it really? It's I think, the only way to do continuous pen testing is to have the same person on some sleep awakeness drugs for 24/7, just testing things every day for 365 days a year. There's a parallel between a continuous testing and a continuous pen tester. I don't know, but what we're seeing in reality is loads of companies are offering continuous pen testing now. It's great, but looking beneath the marketing PDFs and all that bump, it's still vulnerability scanning, I think, at best. There might be some attack surface monitoring and some other bits there. Might generate tickets, find a change. I think it's useful, but it's certainly not pen testing. I don't think it should be calling it continuous pen testing. No one's disagreeing, great. Then what can I say is, well, we sell it, okay. we sell continuous pen testing, but that's only because the rest of the industry is doing it, and we feel if we don't do it, we're going to lose out. But we're quite clear as to what it is and what it isn't. That's one of Andy's slides, isn't it? Yeah, great. I think that slide probably speaks for itself, really. Continuous pen testing, it's not because there's been an industry need for it, it's because some bright spark in the marketing department, a big vendor with a big budget, have decided it's what our customers must want, let's sell it and let's get away with the minimum viable product to do it. So, same engine, better story, but a big marketing budget. So, I'll leave it there. I was going to name some vendors, but I get sued to do that. But obviously, humans still do a lot more than platforms don't. I've not talked about AI at all in this because it's just too ironic given I use AI to write the presentation. So humans do so much more than platforms don't or can't. And I know we've got Mythos and you've got LLMs, you've got stuff, you've got Claude, you've got things that do all this stuff, but I don't think any AI can do what a human does at the moment, apart from writing presentations. But a test is always going to be there asking, what assumptions should be broken, what can be broken, how do you chain all these things together? Bear in mind the subversion example earlier, how do you chain together informational finding to critical compromise? I just don't think, LLM, it's machine learning. I just don't think machines have been taught to do that yet, or how to correlate all this stuff together. And can AI understand business processes, especially where most companies don't bother documenting them anyway? How do they do that? So we're scientists. We're supposed to be challenging all this stuff and investigate and challenge the unknown. So again, with continuous pen testing, okay, as a small consultancy, we explain the nuances, why you should, what you shouldn't, but we're kind of competing with vendors of multi-million-pound security budgets. They're coming out with words. I'm pretty sure a vendor came out with the word cyber. They come up with the word continuous pen testing, and you could probably think things in your heads right now, stuff that's out there on the market that has been driven by a vendor, and not necessarily being something a company actually needs. And then you can guess which one wins more opportunities. It's the guys with the budget. So we're being vendor-led. Marketing-led security. It's quite a boring phrase in itself, but there's quite a lot of power behind that. So, silver bullet security, we've been sold to. Companies buy stuff from people they trust. And clients still want continuous pen testing. They say they want it, but they get sold something that's a bit more like continuous visibility and monitoring. It's not really pen testing, but it's not it's not a human pen tester that's attacking your environment every day, every hour, every month. So it's a service, and I can coin some other some other examples, maybe even like red teaming. In these days, you can't go out and buy a pen test. Your management says, "Oh, can you go and buy us a red team, please?" And red team, not a pen test. What are you going on about? But everyone's sort of selling it. We sell it, and we know what it is. It's from the old military days of red teaming, blue teaming, and real adversarial stuff in the military. But then a real pen test to us is still about finding stuff, assessing attack paths, reporting weaknesses. That hasn't really changed. So marketing budgets are chasing this red teaming thing. Someone came up with purple teaming. We came up with green teaming. We were just pissed off with it all, and they said, "Well, we do green teams because we do them in an environmentally sustainable manner." Explanation gets a few laughs, I think, but then but it gets your customer thinking, "Oh, well, maybe I'm being sold to. I thought you were selling green teams." Let's run a red team. Translation, let's do a pen test with a cooler name. Nothing's changed. Apart from what you've got to put in your PO, it costs a lot more. I still work with banks, and they pay 6 figures for a red team exercise, and we look at it and think, hang on, that's a week's worth of work. But there's a real big gap. So we meet them somewhere in between, still try and overcharge them because they're a bank anyway, and they deserve to be charged. Where are we? Doing well for time. Yeah, God, where are we? So, but I do think the attack paths are so much more important to find. I was trying to draw that home earlier. I covered that off enough. Then testers probably contribute to the issue. I think there is a bit of severity inflation. I think when I say pen testers do find it critical, sometimes we do have a word and say it's not really critical, it's just really high. But we do lower things internally sometimes before we send them out. Some reports are just too big. There's a lot of generic remediation that the tester will grab from OWASP or a vendor website. Copy and paste recommendations. That's a great use of things like Canopy. But I think as an industry, you should be a bit more honest about that. We've got to make our reports a lot easier, a lot more concise, a lot more accurate, and not over-egg them. So, if anyone wants a report QA, just send it to me, and I will do your head in. Quite happy. Yeah, and I think that talks to itself. Maybe, especially with some standards, I don't want to name check specifically. We are well known for produce, not to say, but the industry, they're producing pretty massive reports sometimes. And the thing, if you give someone an 80-page report, who's really going to read it? I mean, who's going to read it and understand it? I mean, the customer's doing a pen test once a year. They're not experts. They don't know. So be mindful of that. And if you are going to have 40 pages of screenshots, methodology, and boilerplate, remediation, blah, 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 think about, as a customer, how are you going to be reading that, how are you going to interpret it, and how are you going to improve your security? And that brings us to that. I mean, what do good findings look like? If you're doing a report, how do you get all this stuff fits? You've got to think about, challenge yourself. I mean, why would a customer care? Okay, you found something, but why would they care specifically? Write that out in your findings. Why should they read it? Why should they fix it? What could an attacker actually do? How do they fix it? I mean, how would an attacker do it? I mean, what should the customer fix first? I mean, what happens if they just ignore your finding? That is kind of where reports need to be. You've got to treat your customers almost like school children. They can read and write at best, but bear in mind we're all very technical people, and your customers aren't. And they're busy doing other projects. They're bringing out new features for their app. They're busy building parking ticket systems that the whole internet can see, and all shit like that. I said earlier. If that's helpful. But then, how do they fix stuff? The real answer is pretty boring, and that moves away from pen testing and breaking stuff, finding stuff. This is some stuff you can. This is stuff you actually need to do to fix security. But the uncomfortable truth there is, nobody can. You're right up there. Go down the stairs. Yeah. Never seen someone fall asleep standing up before. That's not bad. My talks have been drier. But the real answer, how do you solve security? It's really something that vendors can put in a nice, neat marketing 3 words slogan, is it? So think of that. Again, it's self-explanatory, but pen test is just evidence you've done something. Vulnerability scans, more evidence. Dashboards is just evidence, isn't it? But none of this evidence is actually security. And I hope that speaks for itself. I mean, once you do your report, what attack capability exists at the time of you doing that report? I mean, that didn't exist for the customer the day before. I mean, what's new? What attacks passed there? But I think reports need to be a lot more attack focused. And I guess it's a so what factor, as the NCSC says when it keeps rejecting our check reports, for example. They say, well, yeah, you found all this stuff, so what? What could be achieved? How do you articulate that in a language that customers can understand and remediate and get better? And when finding text remediations, so we do our pen test report, customer gets it, can you put it in an Excel file so we can just do change control tickets for each? Okay. So they take our pen test report, create change tickets for each individual item, they give them off to different teams to fix. So where those findings might have been fixed, have they actually, in doing that, have they reduced the ability of an attacker to attack you next time? Why are these findings here in the first place? And again, the most valuable finding isn't necessarily the one with the highest CVSS score that we've got on that. Most valuable finding is the one that organisations will actually fix, which seems to be highly variable. That's a good point. So how do we change all of this? I think it's the language. We've got to stop talking in technical language. Yeah, definitely. I'm sure this makes sense. Actually, that's not a real CVE, but there's a lot of technical jargon in pen tests. The CVEs that seem like priv escalation. There's so much I won't go into. I'll be here all day, but. If you're telling someone there's this really technical thing, is a technical thing, you've got to go off and fix it, and they won't. But if you change the language and you say, well, what you've got to do is, hey guys, an attacker can move from the public web server and get domain admin, the 3 steps. So the first one will always get logged in a change ticket system, and eventually it will get fixed on its own. But the other one will actually get the customer some funding from management to fix stuff. So I think that's pretty much where we are. I think that very much repeats, that's the whole point of the conclusion, isn't it? It repeats everything that's, that I've said already, but I don't think there's anything in there. But so I guess that sort of wraps it up and open for questions. But if your latest pen test report disappeared, would your security posture actually change tomorrow? Right, that's me done, but back to the floor. Well, it's not really the floor, is it? Back to the chairs for any questions. I hope you found that helpful from a battle-weary, worn-out security consultant who probably needs to retire soon. But let me know if there's anything we can do to help, and if you need help articulating things to customers or need some encouragement in what you guys are doing, let me know. I'm here to help. And here we go. Gentleman in the middle. Money. Less money. No. I think money or bonuses. But I guess, from perspective, how would I encourage a customer to do that? Or do you mean if I'm internal and how? Yeah. Yeah, it does pain, but I think when it involves pain, it involves cost and effort, isn't it? I mean, I'm trying to think, I do a lot of work with banks. I've got one at the moment, and they are Stash Windows 2016 server still, and they're a well-known bank. And what are you doing that for? And so, well, we need to. We can't change them because if we do that, we can't do blah blah blah. And I don't understand the blah blah blah. It's something about making sure they don't lose customers' money or something. But how do you persuade some? I think the question there is how do you persuade someone to virtually switch off or recommission a legacy server that is business critical? And it's a difficult one because they can't just change overnight. If you've got a banking system with 1 million customers on it, in the right security mindset, absolutely, you've got to do something about it. But it's a tricky one, isn't it? I don't have an exact answer, but all we can do is articulate the risk. And maybe ask that they put some other controls around it, maybe enhanced monitoring to see if anything's going wrong, some light touch stuff. I mean, some of this stuff doesn't even have antivirus on it. It's terrible. I'd say, yeah, but by keeping an eye on it, I think monitoring is probably the best thing you can advise. Then you can work out if anything's going wrong, and then you do need someone to look at the logs. I think I answered a completely different question to what you asked actually. Does that help? Anyone else like to ask a question and get a completely different answer to what they asked? Yeah, gentleman in the hat there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess the question there to rephrase it is whether or not a peer review would be helpful. So I guess you're saying when a tester writes a report, do you mean the tester gets that report peer reviewed, or do you mean the? Yeah. Okay. Sort of knowledge sharing, isn't it? So, no, you've got some mechanisms already. The NCSC have, what is it, CISP, I think they call it, where all the big companies sign up to this knowledge sharing. I don't know what they call it. It's intelligence sharing or threat intelligence sharing. So if one bank's seeing a particular strain of hack going on, then they go on this forum and tell everybody else about it and share thoughts. But invariably that platform was sort of taken over by vendors, ironically. The vendors managed to get into it. But I think that is helpful. I think if you look at what the NCSC are doing with larger firms, they are encouraging this talk, and they're taking it upon themselves. You sign up to their alerts, that they will tell you what to look out for. But I think people do share information now, whereas maybe 20, 30 years ago they said, we can't get what we do. We're a super secret bank. We do everything completely different from you guys. But it took them a while to realise actually do the same thing, because there's so much cross-pollination of staff. Most banks do the same thing anyway. Yeah, it definitely helps. Any more questions? Oh, was that? Oh, there. I thought it was yeah. So I got one right at the back. Sorry. Yeah, but I worked that one out because we started saying that, and it's more of a sales tactic. They said, "Well, hang on, you've used the same pen test for the last 3 years. How do you know they're doing things right? Choose us." And they, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's the point. Yeah, we'll move." But then the drawback to that is 3 years later they moved away from us. But it's all cyclical. But I think the key question is that you're getting somebody competent doing your pen tests, and they can be the same person, might be someone else, but. If you have a competent pen tester that knows most stuff anyway, then why move? Keep the same one. But that's maybe the perfect world. But I do think it does help keep people on their toes, doesn't it? I think if you do a bit of rotation every few years, it does get a bit of freshness. I don't actually know if it actually benefits or. Does a new tester actually find more stuff than the old tester wouldn't have found? You just never know, do you? So, that's a good point. And two more in the middle there. Sorry, man in the grey t-shirt. There we go. Sorry. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, kind of. But that's maybe a client maturity issue. They might not really understand the repercussions of what they're doing. I mean, most security standards are, ironically, they're CVS, they're straight CV-based, they're findings-based. So if you have a high critical finding, you've got to fix it. So it's actually the standard that's telling that customer what to do in that case. No. Yeah. Yeah, but with frameworks, I always see frameworks as a bare minimum that clients should be doing. I mean, often PCI is promoted as a bare minimum framework. These are the minimum controls you must be doing, and you're kind of expected to do more if your risk is greater. But invariably, everybody just ends up doing the bare minimum. I think that's human nature, isn't it? Like, they don't do any more. And even with Cyber Essentials, that's had a later change a few months ago, where they're saying anybody with a high critical finding, you have to patch it within 14 days, no matter what. But again, that's findings focused. I don't know if you've seen the Cyber Essentials stuff, but that's quite a bold move. I mean, asking a big organisation to make sure they patch all their criticals within 14 days of release or they fail, is a big ask. But I kind of prefer that in a way because they're actually being told to do stuff to move things forward. But yeah, do they ever sit back? But in that example, they've probably got no time to sit back and change stuff together because they're chasing their tails, patching everything now. But I think that as a bare minimum, everyone should be patching all this stuff. It just reduces the attack surface, which is great. But then the real benefit of a pen test would be seeing if there's anything left over, anything that can be chained together. But attack chaining isn't recommended in any standard, really. So maybe that's what needs to change, that the standard has to say, okay, you've done your patching, great, now do a proper pen test. Make sure you do a proper pen test, because, and again, that goes back to the market where, still today, you buy a pen test from someone and you get a vulnerability scan still. That's still going on. Something else we need to learn about. But yeah, another one from there. Yeah, there's a lot of that, and even standards like Cyber Essentials encourage it. You look at your Cyber Essentials guidance, it will tell you if you've got legacy stuff that you know won't pass, and yeah, put it on a legacy network. So it acknowledges that this problem exists, and I think with any bank, even the new challenger banks, like the, well, I'm trying to keep names out of it, but you know, the ones that are online only type banks that have come on the market 10, 15 years ago. Even their have challenges with legacy systems, and they've only been around for 15 years. But they're a lot better off than the high street banks. But here's a legacy network, and all the insecure stuff ends up on the legacy network, and effectively it gets ignored, I think. I think it's legacy, it's separated, I would just leave it there for a few more years. That's definitely what happens. I'd love to name names, but you need to know the names if I say them. And then these big FTSE 100 companies. And it's not because they're insecure or anything. Well, they are, but not because they're doing anything too wrong. It's just the way. It's just kind of the way things are. Everyone has legacy systems, but it's a big elephant in the room. Even I've got legacy systems at home. I found an iPhone 8 the other day. Everyone else, I mean, people are visibly getting up and walking off, so I've upset them. But yeah, all right. Well, thanks everybody. Cheers, thanks.